Edge of Eternity previews are coming to a close, so I thought I would round up talking about the final group that I find exciting and interesting. This is not everything. These are the cards that I find the most fascinating from a certain format perspective, playability, or just what they mean for Magic generally. If you're looking to buy a single or sealed product in North America, use the code KENOBI at checkout at coolstuffinc.com, cool stuff in stock, and the code will get you 5% off your order and help support the show. And in Europe, if you're buying from magicmadhouse.co.uk for Magic singles or sealed product, as well as all sorts of other stuff from Warhammer to Pokemon cards and other things, you can use the on-screen code PK-edging to get 5% off your order for all non-sale and non-pre-order items. That's PK Edging. Let's talk a little bit about one of the bonus sheets, the land bonus sheet. 1 in every 8 play boosters will have these, as well as them showing up in collector boosters. They're now reprinting Ancient Tomb. A much needed reprint. The cheapest version of this card that is not gold bordered is $100 right now. It comes in 2 frames. I'll be completely honest with you, I have no fucking idea why there are 2 frames or what the differences are. Just 2 versions of Stellar Sights, I guess. I think having 2 versions of the same card in the same like promo slot is quite bizarre. I love this art in particular with the hollowed out planet. I do like, I kind of like the spaceship being in the set symbol part. I think a lot of the cards in this slot not having a set symbol kind of blows. I think the set symbol makes the card look like a real Magic card. Not a fan of the alien text font, not a huge fan of the framing itself, although I have seen this frame in foil in the flesh now. Hashtag thank you for Wizards for sending out some free preview stuff. I'll have pack out openings and things on the channel as of the weekend and into next week. And this frame in particular in foil does look very pretty. It shimmers and it glitters in a way you'd expect for that sort of like ethereal space map look. A fantastic legacy staple, a game changer for Commander that I play in a lot of decks, and I'm also looking forward to playing some Prison on Arena in Timeless with this card too. Fantastic reprint, 10 out of 10. Alongside this, we also have Strip Mine, and I really like this classic retro futurism sort of like art here. Again, not a big fan of the frame, but love the art. Both of these are coming to Arena, of course, because that's how all the special guests and special slots work, and thus they're both coming to Timeless, the Arena equivalent of Legacy, or in this case, I guess, more so Vintage now if Strip Mine is in the format. Strip Mine is famously banned in Legacy and restricted in Vintage, but Trick Jarrett on Reddit confirmed that Strip Mine will not be immediately restricted or banned in Timeless, and thus there will be a window on Arena where you can play an eternal, non-rotating format where 4 Strip Mine is legal, which sounds fun for all of about 5 minutes. I'm interested to play it. I think that'll be interesting, but I think the novelty will wear off fast. Again, those Strip Mines are pretty sweet reprint. Cheapest version of this floating around right now is $30, so this is a good primo thing. You can still open a play booster. It's interesting because like landfall is one of the key archetypes in red-green of the draft format, and one of the things I heard about them talking about on stream was that the special slot being lands is a conscious decision to allow these to show up, you know, it's 1 in every 8 packs. So in a draft of 24 packs, that's 3 on average will show up. Is that right, math? Yeah, that sounds about right. And thus you will see 3 of these in every draft, and thus in a 3-round like Swiss event of a draft, you'll probably see at least one of these across from you or in play on your side. Not Strip Mine in particular, but one of this sheet. This does mean you can get Strip Mined in Limited, and it does mean that Strip Mine plus a Crucible effect, which we'll come to a bit later, is legal. So there may be a very rare stars aligning, if you excuse the pun, of someone being able to take 2 different rares and Strip Mine locking their opponent out of the game in a normal draft environment. And I think that's kind of funny. It's gonna be unusual, but it will happen to someone somewhere, and I'm sorry if that person is you. Right, I've jumbled them up, so I don't even know what order they're coming in. I know the thumbnail's about the sneak attack, but let's start with Entropic Battlecruiser, a 4-mana artifact spaceship with station. Its first pip, which involves putting 1 counter on it, tapping 1 power creature, is whenever an opponent discards a card, they lose 3 life. It's Megrim, baby. It costs 1 more mana and does 1 more damage than a Megrim, but it is life loss too, not damage, which is important for various things. There's an important distinction, should I say. Megrim has been part of some like fringe combo decks when it's been in formats. You can play it and then wheel people and shoot them and such. It's never really been a true competitive player, more a fringe combo. But this, of course, is not just a Megrim. It also levels up to become flying, death touching 3/10, and whenever the spacecraft attacks, your opponent discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life, and thus it does the thing and enables the thing. It can't be your commander, not legendary. This card seems, I want to say fun. I know that a discard engine that zaps your opponent isn't fun by most people's standards, but I think it's an interesting design space to take one of the black non-legendary rare spaceships. Is it playable in Standard? Probably not, but if there is a discard deck, then this might be some number in there. Issatil Explorer is my kind of card, and is an easy pickup for an upgrade for the lands-based insect commander deck with this set. I might do an actual upgrade guide for those later next week, in the early part of next week. I'm a bit late to that, but I've just received them from Wizards, so I might crack them open and talk about the things I'd include, including this card here. A 4-mana, 2/4 Insect Scout in green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. That is an Explore effect. You may play land cards from your graveyard. That's a Crucible effect. And whenever your land enters, mill a card, which is a it's a self-mill effect. In essence, this does all of the things you want in a lands deck. It is on a slightly more premium body at 4 mana, but I mean, we play that for Oracle of Dire, and that's still playable in lands decks in Commander. This does so much that I actually think it could see some sort of play if there is a lands deck in Standard, not in Eternal formats. The best comparison is Oracle of Moldiah, in the sense that it creates your card advantage as well. What Oracle does is not only can you play another land from hand, but you can get another land from the top of your library. Instead, Issatil Explorer says, actually, you can do that, but not from top of library, but from graveyard. Thus, it generates you card advantage. You're getting lands from a zone that you don't normally have access to, and you can play more than one a turn. And on top of all of that, it has an extra third line of text with a landfall trigger that enables all your sorts of graveyard nonsense that you can get up to, but also enables itself in play a land, trigger, mill yourself, find another land. It is a card advantage engine that it's a card advantage engine in itself, but then it enables the engines of the deck alongside that. It's very powerful. I love this card, but I do recognize that it's kind of pushed in a sense that it does 3 very strong things for its archetype on a 4-mana 2/4 body. Beyond the Quiet is the Sunfall we have at home. It's the Wrath of God equivalent with a set mechanic Straptor, but in this case, instead of doing a set mechanic thing like incubating, instead exiles all creatures and spacecraft. So it hits non-stationed stationed spacecraft that haven't become creatures yet. It gets rid of them preemptively, and thus it can't be played alongside them like other Wraths could, to enable you to play like a creatureless control deck that eventually does have creatures. The alternate art the alternate art here by Serena Manon is probably the best looking card in the set by, not by a huge margin, but it's just gorgeous. There's this weird, abstract, personified or perhaps godly figure collapsing a black hole and encompassing it in this like white ethereal energy. There are ships swirling on the outer rim that gives it a perspective, a sense of scale that suggests that this character is larger, much larger than your average bear or human. Not that there's that many bears in the set. And I also really like the alternate art framing for having this primarily white and pearlescent color scheme. I haven't seen a foil of this yet, and I want to. I think it's going to look pretty damn good. But the white framing is so jarringly different to everything else in the set, and I think that in a good way. It really stands out. Playability, 5-mana Wrath. It will see some play without a doubt, much like Sunfall did in certain control strategies in Standard. And in Commander, it does exile, which is a big upside, similar to Sunfall, and it does hit spacecraft. So at least for a period of time, if you want to get really meta about stuff, people are going to try jamming spacecraft at the local game store because they're the new hotness. So this might have added value for a period of time. Hardlight Containment is a 1-mana enchantment aura, enchant artifact you control. When this aura enters, exile target creature and opponent controls until this aura leaves the battlefield. Enchantment opponent has ward 1. I do love this art as well. Again, that stark contrast of yellow on black. This is a 1-mana enchantment that has to hit an artifact. Not hit an artifact. It has to be attached to an artifact you control, which does actually limit its playability significantly. People are comparing this to Sheltered by Ghosts, which was a very strong card. I don't think this is anywhere near as strong. It's 1 mana, so it's a portable hole-esque playable card. I don't think this is not playable. I think it's very playable. But Sheltered by Ghosts goes on creatures. It gives you the war protection on your creature, and it gives the lifelink buff as well, which means your creature is now boggling up and smashing face and creating big life swings. This doesn't do any of that stuff, and also has this need to go on an artifact. That said, there will almost certainly be some artifact decks after this set comes out and the format of Standard rotates. I mean, blue-white artifact is already an archetype that you'll see on the ladder, so I think this will see some play. It's just not as good as Sheltered by Ghosts. Sheltered by Ghosts is probably a contender for one of the best best removal / aura pumps, if not the best removal / aura pump, because there's not that many of them in the history of Magic. A card that I have been pinged about a little bit here is Lightstall Inquisitor, a 1 mana 2/1 Vigilant Angel Wizard. So we've already got an aggressive stat line at 1 mana with a relevant keyword. So what does the rest of the text say? Well, whenever this creature enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand, and you may play that card as long as it remains exiled. Each spell cast this way costs 1 more to cast. Each land played this way enters tapped. So in essence, it's a 1 mana disruptive sort of aggro engine card. Engine's probably not the right word. It's a white winged disruptive card, and thus people are like, is this playable in D&T? Is this playable in D&T in older formats like Legacy and Modern? I think it's probably worth a shot trying it, but I would, as a soul read, say it's not good enough. Mainly because, so it enters and you get to exile 1 card from the hand. That card costs 1 more to cast. If you then sequence into a Thalia, for example, maybe even a big Thalia or something after that, you get to really disrupt them, make the spells cost more. There's also Aven Interrupter that makes spells cost 2 more from exile as well, which means that plus a Lightstall Inquisitor makes that card cost 3. So you can cook up a bit of not a storm, probably an anti-storm is probably a better way of describing it. And I could see perhaps a white winged deck in Pioneer wanting to do that more so than something in Modern or Legacy. The bit that I think really sort of hamstrings it a little bit and feels like a safety valve or a gasket being turned back in terms of its power level is that each spell cast this way costs 1 more to cast line is part of the overall text of the exiling effect. If this exiled a card from their hand and then also has a separate line saying, they can cast it from, if it exiled from hand allowed them to cast it, then a separate line, much like Aven Interrupter said, spells cast from exile cost 1 more to cast, that would be such a huge, massive boon to the card because it'd have extra efficiency beyond its one-time trick, or its one-time flickerable trick, should I say. Of course, you can combo this with Mutinous Massacre as well in older formats to make them be unable to cast or play that card. And the fact that there's an important point we should talk about here. It hits lands. Hitting a land is huge compared to these effects normally. They can't normally hit lands. So if you can hit the land and then stop them playing the land, that's Mutinous Massacre to turn off cards being played from exile. Oh shit, I just realised Mutinous Massacre says cards can't be cast. They can still play the lands. Okay, that doesn't work. Wasteland Strangler. This used to be tech in Modern. You used to rip cards out of hand and out of play and then process them back into the bin with the processor cards. The cards that remove cards from exile and then slap some -3. Well, in this case, slap some -2/-3 on a creature. So if you rip their land out of their hand with Lightstall Inquisitor, or you can just flicker this in play as well, and then Waste Strangler it into the bin, you've actually taken a land out of their hand, which is an insanely powerful effect that most cards can't do these days. So it has potential. I just don't know if it's actually good enough. I'm definitely going to try it though. Temporary Lockdown is rotating, but don't worry, we have a version of it that's probably better. A 3 mana artifact version instead of enchantments. This therefore triggers Simulacrum Synthesizer, which is very relevant. Enter the battlefield, exiles all artifacts and creatures with mana value 2 or less until this artifact leaves the battlefield. And then for 8 mana, you can put each card exiled with this artifact into its owner's graveyard, then create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token for each card put into a graveyard this way, and then you sack it. So in essence, a Temporary Lockdown always had this thing where it puts a lot of stuff under it and then your opponent blows it up and they get all the ETB value again and yada yada yada. Pinnacle Starcage does have this upside of being able to be popped by yourself in response to a removal spell. However, that is 8 bloody mana. So whilst it's nice to have that utility, that's rarely going to come up in a game of Standard. What I could see this being is almost like a control finisher. Keeping the cards out of the graveyard to stop the roots decks and stuff from doing things, and then once you turn the corner and you're fully in the game, you can... In their end step, by the way, so it's not sorcery speed. In their end step, you can pay 8 mana, sack this off, put the cards back into exile, make a lot of robots, untap, and now you have a lot of robots in play to smash face with. It is both a miniature Wrath like Temporary Lockdown with a sort of control style end of game turn the corner finisher, and I think that makes it very playable. I think this will see quite a lot of play in Standard. Kind of terrible for Commander though. Outside of perhaps the most efficient metagames, this card gets better and better the more into CDH you go, where everyone's playing 1 and 2 mana utility pieces and mana rocks like your Soul Rings, your fast mana, and your Esper Sentinels and such. Sunstar Chaplain is a card that I'm very excited for. All 3 of the previous cards are all probably going into the mono white cube as an example of how good they are in the white part of the color pie. Sunstar Chaplain is a 2 mana 3/2, so we've already got a very well statted body. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So basically, if you're swinging out and going aggro, you are growing a creature in your end step. I kind of wish it was like at the beginning of combat or like post-combat. I don't know. I wish it was early in the turn to really push this card, but the card's pretty good without it, to be fair. But it helps you aggro and it helps you station. And then the second mode, 2 mana, remove a +1/+1 counter from the creature you control to tap target artifact or creature, gives you a disruptive element. Now, it being 2 mana feels quite conservative and quite safe, but this is on a 2 mana 3/2. So, I mean, maybe I'm just blindsided by just how powerful things are in contemporary Magic. But yeah, this is a strong effect on an already powerful creature, 3/2, 2 mana that pumps your team or pumps one member of your team. This card seems very good. If there is a white wing deck in Standard that almost certainly wants to play this, it's not quite a Luminarch Aspirant, but it does more than Luminarch Aspirant in a disruptive way, which is very, very good. Also, I just love the aesthetics of this card. I love this armor. I know it's probably a bit further into the sci-fi than most things in this set, away from the science fantasy, but I can't help but love it. Into the blue cards, we've got Manon, which sounds like Danom, which is like it's a brand of yogurt. Is that a brand of yogurt? Someone comment down below. This is Manon, the right hand, a 5 mana 3/4 blue jellyfish advisor. It has flying. Look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast artifact spells from the top of your library. Artifacts you control have tap, add blue, spend any mana. Spend this mana only to cast spells from anywhere other than your hand. Super interesting design. Very fun sounding commander. It's basically a future sight for artifacts, similar to Mystic Forge, which we all know is a very powerful Magic card. Artifacts you control having the ability to tap for blue, and then you can only spend that mana to cast spells from anywhere other than your hand. It means basically exile, top of library, and graveyard, I guess. You can cast flashback spells with this, and it's not restricted to just casting artifacts either. So you can cast spells, well, the very obvious statement, that aren't artifacts with this. Weirdly, you can't cast those spells on top of your library with his own effect. You need a different future sight effect for this. I don't think this is going to be that constructed playable. I think it's definitely a cool commander. There is a world where this randomly combo kills people. It's got enough weird text on it that it could easily be some part of a combo engine further down the line, but I don't think that the cards that do that exist within Standard or Pioneer or Modern right now. I guess one interesting application of this is that if your deck is full of like 0 and 1 mana artifacts, with this in play, you can cast those artifact spells on top of your library. Importantly, he can't play through artifact lands, so artifact lands are bricks too. But essentially, you play through and chain through your deck. Of course, you've got to get him to play first at 5 mana. And then all those artifacts that you've played, the 0 mana ones, especially Mishra's Baubles, Mox Ambers, and similar, they all tap for blue, which allows you then to play the bigger artifacts you find on top of your deck. So on its own, it almost enables that build-up of like cheap artifact, cheap artifact, cheap artifact, play a 3 mana artifact, and it helps itself to dig through your deck. Yeah, maybe the card's more powerful than I'm giving it credit. This card is a absolute commander house, and I'm gonna enjoy playing with this. Moonlit Meditation is a 3 mana enchantment aura, enchant artifact or creature you control. Then the first time you create 1 or more tokens each turn, not just your turn by the way, in your opponent's turn, that's important, you may instead create that many tokens that are copies of enchanted permanent. Okay, the things you can do with this are fucking endless, and I probably need to do a video just on that. Immediately my first thought is I'm going to put this on a tireless provisioner. I am going to play a land and immediately create a token copy of said tireless provisioner. That land, let's say, is a fetch land. They pass the next player's turn. We're gonna sack that fetch land, get 2 tireless provisioner triggers. The first one will create a tireless provisioner, and the next one will create a food treasure or whatever, and off we go. Now, if we add a Academy Manufacturer to this, as we do tireless provisioner, we'll make 3 tireless provisioners. Hell, if we put Moonlight Meditation onto an Academy Manufacturer, then we make a treasure off of a tireless provisioner by playing a fetch land, for example. I would make 3 Academy Manufacturers. At which point in the following turn, when we sack the fetch, we make... Fuck, how many is that? Okay, I had to like pause for quite a while to figure this out. So the first Academy Manufacturer gives you... Academy Rector? That's a card, by the way. Rector hardly knew her. The first Academy Manufacturer gives you 3 tokens. So you make a clue, treasure, and a food, okay? The next one sees each of those and gives you 1 food, clue, and treasure for each. So the first one gives us 3. The next one gives us 9. Then the next one sees each of those 9 and gives us 3 for each one. So that's 27. And the fourth and final one gives us 81. I actually don't know. If we had 81 Academy Manufacturers and then we played 1 more land, created a treasure, which then was replaced with a copy of Academy Manufacturer, I actually don't have a fucking clue how this works. That's too much math. Either way, you're going to get to do some really fucked up things with Moonlit Meditation. There's just so much crazy shit you can do. Starwinder is a 7-mana 7/7 that says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. Okay, put a pin in that. That's pretty wild. We'll come back to that. It also has Warp 4. So in essence, it is a 7-mana 7/7, but it can also be a 4-mana Coastal Piracy variant for 1 turn. Interestingly, normally Coastal Piracy variants just allow you to draw 1 card per creature hitting you. It's the Curiosity, the Coastal Piracy, the Ophidian text. This is quite a unique effect in Magic to allow it to do it equal to number of power hitting them. I actually think this has only been printed in this exact variant once before on Cold-Eyed Selkie, a card that I used to play in Voltron Commander decks where I'd stick a load of swords on it and hit people and draw like 10 cards. So this is actually wildly powerful compared to previous versions of the effect. It is on a 7-mana 7/7, which does have a diminishing effect on its power level because you've got to get it into play. But if you do get it into play and smack people, you will probably deck yourself. It's going to cause some problems. Synthesizer Lab Ship is a 1-mana, oh, that's right, a 1-mana spacecraft, and thus, before we even start reading it, I am suspicious, with a 1-mana spacecraft at rare, that this might just be constructed playable simply because of how cheap and efficient it's going to be. Let's read further. It has Station, and then if you get 2 power onto it by tapping a 2-power creature or 2 1/1s, you get at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 other target artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 2/2 and gains flying to end of turn. Its top bracket becomes a flying vigilant 4/4. Sure, okay, 1-mana flying vigilant 4/4 that's put 9 counters onto by tapping creatures isn't that great. But let's talk about that first ability. It seems like an underpowered version of previous anime artifact stuff like the Staff. What's the staff? That's it, the Black Staff of Waterdeep. I had to do some Scryfall digging for that one. This and in Soul Artifact. So Black Staff of Waterdeep's 1-mana, 2-mana to activate, makes it a 4/4, and in Soul Artifact makes it a 5/5. So a 2/2 seems middling, right? But it does a few things that I think are really important to understand the power level of this card. Firstly, it gives flying, and thus you get evasion straight off the bat, which is quite good for just having things that are useful for hitting people and not getting chump blocked. That's the base level. The real power upside of this compared to something like the Staff is that it is a recurring, ongoing, every turn an artifact into a flying 2/2, which is not a thing you see that often, and well, Staff and in Soul Artifact were both playable, so that makes me think this is playable. I originally thought this might be good for turning your spaceships on as 2/2 smaller versions of themselves, but what you've got to remember with all the station mechanics is that, as you can see on the ship, if you aren't stationed, you don't have that ability text. So most of the spaceships don't have the evasion or the keywords or the on-attack triggers and similar until you station them up. So really this doesn't work like I first thought it did. Makes it a bit confusing to be in the set, if I'm honest. So really, it's not doing the cheating that I thought it was originally. Arch Enemy's Charm is the black part of the cycle now. It's that's 3 out of the 5. We haven't had the white one or the red one yet. Arch Enemy's Charm gives you 3 options. Exile target creature or planeswalker, a very strong effect, even if it is triple black. Return 1 or 2 target creature cards or planeswalkers cards from your graveyard to your hand, so a Gravedigger effect, which at instant speed in their end step is pretty good to put 2 creatures back in hand. That's some good card advantage. And put 2+1 counters on a creature you control against lifelink to end of turn. Not the best mode, but it can help race. I think the fact that it does 3 very versatile things, it generates card advantage, and it can also do a big point life swing in a matchup where that matters, makes this card very playable. Of course, in triple black, it needs to be a deck that can cast with triple black. And with a load of stuff rotating out, maybe the Demons deck sticks around in some way with Unholy Annex and some Demons. If so, this card could see some play there. Is it playable in Eternal formats? I don't think so. It's just not as good as the blue one, and it's not even as good as the green one, and that sees fringe play. I actually think the green one's underrated, but let's not go into that right now. Call of the Void is a 4-mana aura enchant creature you control. Whenever enchant creature attacks, put target creature card from the defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped and attacking, so you steal opponent's creatures from their bin. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice this aura unless a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. So there's some real big safety valves on this. There's also some setup where you need your opponent to have things in the bin for you to get value out of it. It feels like a commander card, but being able to trigger the Void ability every single turn shouldn't be too hard, but I think it's hard enough to make this a risky card that sometimes we'll just get a one-shot use out of it and then fall off. It's fine. It's a fun variant of a reanimator spell that I probably would play in a command deck for fun, but I don't think it's particularly good. Pain for All is a 3-mana aura that goes on a creature you control. That creature then does damage to its power to any other target, which is pretty good for shooting face. That's already a strong fight effect on a red enchantment, but it does a little bit more. It says whenever this creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. And this is good in a few ways. So firstly, it enters, it shoots something, including someone's face, and then makes that creature an absolute pain in the arse to block, because if you block it with a large creature, you're taking more damage. All players are taking more damage, and thus it's got that added utility in Commander. But more so, I do love this effect. This is a thing that we've got on Boris Reckoners in the past, and we recently had it on... did we get a white creature with this recently? Brash Taunt is another example. Either way, I do love doing this and then Starve Extinctioning or Blasphemous Acting and shooting the entire table for damage. And importantly, it's the entire table. With Stuffy Doll or Boris Reckoner or even Brash Taunter, all of the other variants of this that I can think of off the top of my head, target an opponent. Let's hit each opponent, making it like a better version of that effect that we haven't, better than we've seen in the past, but obviously with the downside of it being on an aura that can be removed, or if the creature is killed, you get painfully 2 for wand, although you would get the ETB effect. Importantly, the ETB effect is an ETB effect, enter the battlefield effect. So if the creature you're putting this onto gets killed, you're actually getting full on 2 for wand. So it's a powerful, interesting, combo-tastic aura that I don't think you'll see that much play in Standard, but it's a fun commander card that does open you up to getting wrecked on card advantage. Probably the title card of the video, Tanik Tea Cake, Steadfast Second, is a 4-mana red Kavu pilot that other creatures you control have haste. Fine. A 4-mana creature that gives all your creatures haste. That's pretty fucking standard fare. We've seen this a million times before, from Urobasks to Ogre Battle Drivers. It's a 3/5, but it has artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have Warp 3. Oh boy, this is an exciting build-around card for many formats. It is most comparable, as I'm going to do in the thumbnail, to Sneak Attack, which is a 4-mana enchantment, and for 1 red, you can put a creature from your hand to play. It gains haste and you sack at end of turn. There are some very big distinctions. From a power level perspective, you are playing 3 mana instead of 1, but there is a load of upside here. So firstly, it has this static effect of giving all your creatures haste, which is a blessing and a curse. All your creatures have haste, sure, but then if you warp a creature into play, and the opponent kills Tanik with a removal spell, that creature is in play and then gets exiled at the end of turn, and you don't get to attack with it. So Tanik is fragile in that respect. But that fragility is made up for with the added power, utility, and advantage you get out of it being warp and not the standard put into play and sack later. Warp says that you exile that opponent at the beginning of the next end step, and then you may cast that card from exile on a later turn, so you aren't losing access to that card. That card can be cast later. And thus you're getting a little instant speed fast version of it, which is Sneak Attack adjacent or Sneak Attack styly, and then later on you can cast it. So if you are playing things like Atalis or Primeval Titans or anything that, I don't know why it's Primeval Titans, not a good example for Commander, but anything that's gonna like create a lot of advantage, create a land in play, like the Green Overlord, for example, you can go ahead and use that advantage to recast the card later as you ramp into it. Further to that, it's not just creatures. This is the first, I want to say, Sneak Attack style variant that does both creatures and artifacts, and thus you can 3-mana a Portal to New Phyrexia into play and get them to sack 3 bodies. You could warp a bonus Citadel into play and start playing shit off the top of your library. I generally think that Tanik is the best card from the set for Cube by a huge margin. It opens up so many interesting directions you can take playing Tanik in a Cube deck, especially Vintage Cube or Legacy Cube. But beyond all of that, we've also got some cheaty shit going on. So if we were to warp an Overlord, like the green one that I mentioned or the red one, let's say Overlord of the Boiler Bilges, you warp it in. It shoots the opponent, or creature, sorry. Oh no, it shoots opponents too for 4 damage. Then it attacks. It's a 5/5 attacking, does 4 more damage. That's a whole, what's that, 8 plus 5? That's like 1,000,000 damage. Then it gets exiled. Then you can cast it for its impending cost on the following turn at 4 mana. Overall, of the Boiler Burgess plus Tanik is a wildly powerful combo. Of course, you're going to get to 4 mana, then go to your next turn and play the Boiler Works anyway, but you're going to get so much value out of it. If you look at the cheaper ones, if you look at the black one, which is my favorite of the cycle, we're going to flash it in. We're going to haste it in, mill 4, put a creature in our hand, attack, mill 4, put a creature in our hand, and on the following turn, we're not going to pay it for its 5 mana if we haven't got it, we're just going to play it for its 2 mana impending cost out of the exile zone. Tanik is very, very good, and I'm excited to see what he does in other formats. Well, I say other formats, probably primarily Standard and Commander, but it's a cool effect. I'm going to put it in my cube. Weapons manufacturing is a earlier preview that I don't think I previewed or talked about, sorry, in the last preview video. Anyway, 2 mana whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named munitions with when this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. And basically, this allows you to make every artifact ETB trigger to create a bullet, a gun, a missile, but then you want to be able to sacrifice off. That can be with your Clark Clan Ironworks, that can be with your what's the background? Street Urchin. This card seems pretty good in Jaheira, where the tokens themselves will tap for green mana, although Jaheira as a commander tends to make tokens, and thus the tokens don't trigger this. I think actually if you're flickering stuff, if you're getting regular like recursion where non-token artifacts into the battlefields, that's through flickering them or looping them out of the graveyard with like Goblin Engineer style effects and similar. I think that's where you get the value, where you will get so many artifact tokens to play that then can be used to tap for mana off of an Urza or Jaheira, or be sacked to Clark Clan Ironworks or similar to shoot people for damage. Very, very fun design. I love the idea of stockpiling munitions like some sort of war criminal. Robberoy is a 4 mana 1/3 plant worm at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put X ++ encounters on each creature you control where X is this creature's power. So every single turn it will grow like an ongoing snaking its tail, I guess is the joke there. Either way, it's 1 count on the first turn, 2 on the next turn, 4 on the next turn. And if you can pump it in any other way with equipment, auras, or other effects that just increase the number of counters you're putting onto it, like hardened scales and similar, it's going to get pretty big pretty quickly. It's mythic, which I think is weird. I feel like this is a rare. Like, it seems like an absolute bomb in limited. I absolutely agree, but not perhaps like mythic level of bomb. Or maybe it is. It's a persistent growing over one almost, but with no evasion. Card strong for limited, and that's probably it. I could see playing in Commander. That could be fun. I guess if you play in Commander and just pump it with something obnoxious, you could put like 20 counters on this and then put 20 counters on your whole team. A force multiplier, if you will. The Sledge class siege ship is a 3 mana spacecraft. It's flying, it stations for 7 mana, and by mana I mean, sorry, it stations for 7 power of creatures tapped to station it, and then it's a 4/5 that whenever it attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. It's a very obvious design that we see in like every single set. We saw one of these in Final Fantasy. I'm pretty sure we saw a vehicle that did this in Aether Drift, I want to say. Every other set, there's a green thing that when it attacks, it puts a thing into play. Is there the companion, Coney, or whatever his name is, from Duskmourn? Either way, it takes a little while to get up to there, but you can cheat stuff into play off of it. Very, very, very straightforward. Very, very archetypal. Is it statted efficiently? 3 mana, 7 station? Probably not. I don't think this card's very good. Mutinous Massacre is a choose odd or even wrath. So it costs red, black, 3s. That is 7 mana. Destroy each creature with mana value of the chosen quality, the odd or even, then gain control of all creatures until the end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. 0 is even. So you blow up half the board and gain the rest. This is a interesting wrath for one particular reason. If the opponent casts Heroic Intervention or similar to make their creatures indestructible, so they can't be destroyed by the destroy effect, you still gain control of them because it's gain control of all creatures until end of turn, not all creatures of the other quality. And thus, if someone wants to protect their creatures from this wrath, you will get to gain control of them, untap them, and slap them with them. It's expensive at 7 mana, but I think that's a very interesting and unique way to take a wrath. I like it. I like it a lot. For casual commander. Pinnacle Emissaries are 3 mana 3/3. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless drone artifact with flying. It's a token, obviously, and this token can block only creatures with flying. So it's like a one-sided fly. Either way, it has warp cost as well, so you can play it early and then play like cheap artifacts to trigger this. I guess being able to play a 1 mana version of this and play like a Mishra's Bauble and some sort of Mox seems quite good in like, you know, your higher powered vintage power level areas, maybe in Cube, maybe in Vintage itself, but it is a 3 mana version of Iconoclast. Iconoclast is 2 mana, creates non-flying tokens. But Iconoclast importantly says non-creature spell, this says artifact, and thus I just don't think this tips out or even becomes an interesting card compared to Third Path Iconoclast, simply because Iconoclast is so, from a power level perspective, sorry, so Iconoclast is better in your Vintage Cube and your Vintage and your Eternal formats. It doesn't seem much play in Legacy or Modern, I guess, but because you can cast cantrips into this and get value. Meanwhile, Pinnacle Emissary doesn't do that, and thus I think it just doesn't cut the mustard in that way. However, in like Cube or Commander environments where you are, you know, pushing towards an artifact synergy, this card is very good. It's like Psymaster Thopterist, right? But it doesn't draw you cards. And that's the reason I like Sai so much. Civ Vondan, the Sunstar Exemplar, is a human knight in white-black for 2 mana. Vigilant Menace. Whenever another creature you control dies or is put into exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Civ Vondan and you gain 1 life. And when Civ Vondan dies or is put into exile while its power is 4 or greater, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. So it grows and grows and grows, and if it dies while it's in its bigger mode, it will blow up a non-land permanent. Seems pretty damn strong for a 2/2 for 2. It has 2 very relevant keywords, including some evasion and a utility block and attack sort of thing. And it seems like a payoff for like aristocrat style strategies. And there is a black-white aristocrats deck that isn't quite good enough in standard right now, playing Sephiroth and Blood Artist style effects. So I think this might see some play there, perhaps especially after rotation. And with that said, we should talk about Umbral Collar Zealot. Firstly, the vibe, the look is immaculate. These glowing orbs, the weapon, the armor, the background. My goodness, does this set fucking slap for visual aesthetics. It's a 2 mana 3/2, so already super efficiently statted. It's so funny that like 2 mana 3/2s are like the fucking norm now. Anyway, it's an uncommon. Sacrifice another creature or artifact to surveil 1. So it's a sack outlet for both creatures and artifacts. It surveils, so it's like a Viscera Seer with a better physical body, costs 1 more mana. But more importantly, it's standard legal and Viscera Seer is not. And thus, it being able to sack creatures and artifacts plays into some sort of aristocrats deck featuring Sephiroth and Civ Vondan and similar. The Dawnsire I touched upon earlier. It got previewed by the Professor. It got leaked way before that. I just want to drop it in here. Like, this is 100 damage to 1 target creature or planeswalker when you attack. It doesn't need to attack itself. It becomes a flying 20/20, by the way, once it gets there. This is very, very fancy for what it does. Very much a huge, provocative, splashy mythic that's kind of bad. But the fact that it does 100 damage is huge, because if you shoot a hornet's nest, you make fuck tons of bees. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you might know that I like making bees. There's also the limited dream of shooting the 100 damage onto that red aura and doming someone for 100, which is doable and limited with 1 mythic and 1 rare. So it's magical Christmas land, but my god, am I gonna, if I see it, I'm gonna try it. And then this land, is it a mythic land? Jesus. Adagia Windswept Bastion, also revealed by the Prof, also leaked without him knowing it. He said it wasn't leaked and it was like hours before. This set has been so leaky, it's been unreal. This land entered tapped, it taps for 1 white mana, and 4 mana tap, create a token as a copy of target artifact or enchantment you control, except it's legendary, activate only as a sorcery, and you have to station 12 to get. The blue one is like Talarian Academy for tapping for 1 blue, you have to pay 1 blue into it. The green one is Cradle. Like, all of these lands have really splashy effects, but I think this is my favorite one, other than maybe Talarian Academy. I do love Talarian Academy. I think all of them are kind of bad. Station 12 is a huge ask. But in Commander, if you can every single fucking turn copy your best artifact or enchantment, of course it's legendaries, you can't do it to the same permanent on 2 turn rotations, I get that, unless you have like a Mirror Gallery in play, I guess. But that just seems so good on a land. Creating token copies of things is just so powerful. It's unreal, especially with doublers. Although again, they've put that legendary clause on there to play safe. There's a lot of safety valves in this set. I do think the power level is pushed, but every pushed power level has like 1 or 2 safety valves like tuned onto it to make it a bit weaker. But either way, I love this effect, and I will probably include it as a minimal downside tapped land that I have to tap 12 power creatures to power up. Actually, that downside's not as minimal as it sounds, is it? Interesting card design. And to be honest, interesting card design is what we should look for. That was a lot of spoilers, a lot of previews. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If I missed a card, is there something I haven't covered? Let me know down below. In the meantime, be good to one another, and I'll see you all soon. Ta for now.